So, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you that finally, on the 22nd of September, you are releasing your new album about which we were talking 2 years ago. So I remember that back then you unveiled some of the concept. I was super impressed by that map story and by your adventures in the desert. And I'm, extremely curious. So the album is ready. And so what appeared to be just exactly as it was planned? And there is something that went in a bit different direction.
It's funny because, when there's a saying, it's like when men make plans, gods laugh type of thing. So it's like there is an idea that like, okay, well, here's what we want to do. And a lot of that is sort of like creating a North Star. So at least we're moving towards something. We have a sense of directionality. But you always have to leave room for the happy mistakes, or else like you're gonna strangle your own creativity with like too much of that sort of like rigidity of like, no, we can't do that. Like we don't want a script here, we just want loose talking points. So I think that we came pretty close to hitting the target of what we were trying to do in terms of the story, in terms of the message, in terms of the vibe. But I think there's definitely things on here that we just didn't expect, especially sonically. I think that, whether or not I wanted to write a song called Scorpion, I didn't imagine it to sound like that, but we ended up just sort of like falling into something like that. Or next thing you know, I'm like almost like rapping on a fucking verse, you know what I mean? Or it's like, it just, certain things just feel right when you're in the studio, or you hear a certain bass line, and that stuff sort of like informs, maybe not how you envisioned it, but this is cool, I like this. So I think, yeah, there's always room for happy mistakes. I can't exactly pick up the points of which they were, but I think all the album, I think, the past 3 years of my life,
Oh, okay. So creative improvisation was there, and that's just super cool, I think. Also, what I remembered exactly, I was reading the previous interview, and I was so fascinated by the fact that you emphasized that you just on purpose didn't want to have this album being political. And since that moment, a lot of things, let's say, got very wrong in the world. And didn't it make you change your vision, change your intention towards the album?
Yeah. I think so. I think, even to discuss like what is political is a tough thing, where like everything is inherently political in some way or another at this point in time. And I guess when I didn't want to make it political, I didn't want to write songs about reptilian presidents, you know what I mean? But I think there's still, some political context to the record, obviously with things like Slum Planet. I'm trying to think if there's any that to me is probably, there's a song called What's Left that's slightly political in there, a little bit more cryptically. But other than that, I still wanted to keep a little bit more of like an off-world perspective of looking back at a kind of like big picture of how fucked up the world is, rather than like poking fingers at very specific things. And yeah, I think that, the world has only seemingly gotten more fucked up since then. And it's hard to hold my tongue. It is hard to sort of like, I talk about it in that song Drift, and it's like, cut my tongue like an amputee with phantom love that used to be. That's like, I want to say stuff, but I'm like, is it even fucking worth it anymore? Like, it's just, to me, it's just, I'm sparing myself the pain of getting in those arguments and getting dragged into the fucking gutters of the internet and wasting my time, and nothing gets accomplished, and getting pinned to one side or another by some fucking media outlet. So for me, it's like, I'm just gonna fucking, I'm in my limbo phase, where I just fit. But inherently, yeah, you know, I still listen to my podcasts and I'm super aware of things, what's happening, but I try and not talk about it too much.
Yes, it just ruins the mood totally nowadays. I mean, discussing. But I just wanted to ask you, so don't you think that because of the previous albums, 3Teeth may seem to many people as just highly political band, or you are not scared of such impression?
No, I think, you know, is that when we were a highly political band at the time, the world was not such a highly political place. You know, when we go back to 2014, you know, the Obama administration, when everyone's like, everything is great. And I'm like sitting there, like calling everything out for what it is. You know, I don't think the world became intensely political until like really Donald Trump was elected and everyone tried to jump in and go, Orange man bad. And it was like, listen, they're all fucking bad. But like, I think that everyone wanted to sort of like, you know, jump across the aisle and be like, you know, grab someone by the throat at that point. So I think the world became intensely more political. Every band tried to do their so heavy-handed and fucking just cringe that, like, you know, for me, I decided to say, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. Even though I felt like I did a better job of it than other people. But for me, it just, I don't know. It became like, I don't think we needed more of it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like at that point I was like, I'm gonna write about something else.
Okay, yeah. So let's come back to the album a little bit. So this is the concept album, right? So I think now is the time maybe to tell a little bit more about the whole concept. And yeah, so actually the previous discussion was for the previous webzine. So this is, as far as I remember, the first 3Teeth interview, the Chaoszine. And I think it will be cool if you, once again, I will enjoy the story once again, tell the whole thing about the map. As far as I remember, it was 3 meters long, yes?
About that, yes. It was a big sort of map that we had designed when, you know, we decided to kind of put together a concept for this album and sort of making sure that we had almost like storyboard points for each song in terms of piecing together this idea that I had of writing this album that was starting on Earth and then slowly moving up into space and sort of looking back at Earth. And a lot of it sort of touches on, and I don't know if I got into this on the last thing, and I don't know how revealing this is going to be, but what language is this going to be published in?
In English, yeah. So we are recording it, and it will be a video interview. So previous one was the text one, and this one is more international.
Okay, that's a video. It's a, this is a video interview.
What?
I didn't know it was a video interview. That's fine.
Is it okay for you? I mean,
it's fine. I just maybe wouldn't have looked like such shit, but
fine.
no, it's fine. But yeah, so this idea that, you know, when America was founded, you know, if you look at the sort of mundane natal chart of the United States, that essentially Pluto was in the night sky, and every 250 years Pluto has a return. And much like people talk about a Saturn return, people can't have a Pluto return because we don't live to 250 years old. So nation states can have Pluto returns. An empire can have a Pluto return. If you focus on like historically reading about the Pluto return of maybe the United Kingdom, you can shed some light on what that does to an empire there. So for me to sort of focus on Pluto's return and what it was doing and what it is continuing to do, because they say 245 to 250 years, Pluto has sort of like all along orbit. So for Pluto's return to happen in America right now is creating a lot of, you know, the things that I talk about in this album. And where I say that it's not political, it's more like occult, celestial political. It's getting into some very strange esoteric concepts. So for me, you know, Pluto being the god of death, the god of the underworld, archetypally, you know, in Hades, he's Hades and is a Roman god. He's Anubis as a Greek god. It's all the same archetype. And Pluto for me was something that I wanted to focus on tremendously, and is a big theme in this record. So as we sort of ascend up through that map, you end up sort of becoming keenly aware of the sort of celestial formations that are affecting our little blue planet down here. So that's the very broad synopsis of it.
That's incredible. And here comes my next question. So, astronomy or astrology, what is more for you in this case?
I think they're both. I mean, for me, astrology has to be based on astronomical data. You know, I mean, you can't, you know, in terms of the, you know, the sort of archetypal sort of understanding that is deep in the human psyche, you know, that's a human story in terms of the astrological data or astronomical data that we sort of like look at that stuff with. You know, they're part and parcel. They have to sort of, you know, science. It's like science and mysticism. I feel like good science has a little bit of mysticism in it. You know, how do people create discoveries unless they're sort of like mystically thinking about things? And you know, at some point, you know, there was a guy who said, hey, I think we're actually moving around the sun, and they're like, burn him at the stake. And then like later on they're like, yeah, that guy was right, you know. But so like I think that you have to be willing to go out on a limb and sort of, you know, think sort of like mystically and daringly. You know, do I think there's a lot of just bad hokey astrological nonsense out there? 100%. But also I think that to think that the sort of planets in stars don't have an effect on us is also kind of crazy. You know, the idea that, you know, the moon can pull the fucking tide of this ocean back and forth based on its gravitational pull. You know, you're not nearly as fucking strong as the ocean. I hate to break it to you. So the idea that the moon's not going to affect you is also like, you know, that's a good example for me.
That's actually exactly what I wanted to say about the moon and the ocean, and people are emotional cucumbers, and so it would be ridiculous to think that moon doesn't affect them. Okay, so coming back to the album again, so what song is your favorite, and what song was the most challenging to create?
I think it's funny, like I'm so bad with favorites, but for me, Drift was probably my favorite song because it was the song that meant the most to me, and it was a song that was written in a way that, I don't know, I just kind of got to like bare my soul a little bit with it, and you know, it was just like a real flow of an idea, like it came out easily to me, and I think that I was like kind of concerned at how people were going to respond to it, because I thought it was like, oh, this is like super not 3Teeth, but it was an important song to sharing how I felt and sort of like exercising a little bit of like weird vulnerability. And people liked it. So to me, like that's cool. There was like almost a sense of relief of knowing that like people weren't just like, what the fuck is this shit? Because like, you know, there's always that sort of weird concern of like when you do something that stripped back, and you know, when you're not just like some fucking leather clad avatars that people are like, oh, they're like, he's not even a human being. And like when you act like, when you have this very humanized moment and share that like your fear is that people are going to be like, boo, go back to the other thing. But I think people accepted it for what it was, and I think that was pretty cool. And it felt like, I don't know, it felt special. So even the video of just like kind of showing everyone like a little glimpse into our lives, and you know, going through all that footage, like I edited that video myself, and just like going through all the drives of footage of the moments that we had out there, it was like deeply nostalgic for me. It was like, you know, almost like emotional. Not almost emotional, it was emotional, and it was like really cool to do that, and then again have people, I guess, like I said, like it, and positively respond to it. So that one is going to probably have to be my favorite. In terms of the biggest challenge, I think the cover song was the biggest challenge. Everybody Wants to Rule the World, mainly because I like the original so much that the idea of like creating a version of it that, like it's easier for me to cover a song I don't like because you're like, oh, we could just like make it a better version of that. Like I don't really like Pumped Up Kicks, the original. So for us, it was an easy way for us to be like, oh, let's make it something that we like. But I never really covered a song that I really liked, which I think Everybody Wants to Rule the World is such a perfect song that I'm like, we had to write that song like 9 times to find a version of it that we liked. And it's also a very bright song in terms of like, its tones and stuff like that. And like trying to figure out how to make it dark, but still sound enough like that song or still have some of the vibe. It was just a challenge for us. We did like different tempos, different drum beats, and all sorts of different things. But we got to a version of it that we thought was satisfactory. So I think it's still pretty fun.
And when did you decide to make this particular cover? So was it did this idea come up long ago, or just during what phase of creation of the album?
Yeah, I can't even really remember, to be totally honest. It's just like for me, when we were talking about doing it, maybe I feel like we've been talking about doing that for a long time because the drum beat has this sort of like triplet, almost industrial sound to theirs. And we were like, oh, we could totally make something like that really cool. But maybe, maybe later we like started, I think it was the last thing we did. So it must have been later in it. And is the looming threat of a World War III started to kind of come up that maybe it seemed like the right song.
Well, yeah, actually, I also like this song, and when I got the album for the review, I'm going to write the review about it. And I started from the end of the album because when I saw this song was there, and I like it too, and a lot, I started with it, and it's quite impressive. I mean,
Thank you.
I really, really like Tears for Fears. And it's great how you managed to save probably the atmosphere of the song, but still make it your own. And that is why I genuinely adore covers in general as a movement in artists, in musicians world, because you take the song and you just make it yours. And here comes
that's what a good cover does. But sometimes I hear covers and it just sounds like the song, and you kind of go, "What's the point of doing that?" You know what I mean? It's like that's like what a wedding band would do. Do you know what I mean? But
well,
like, yeah, to like really make it your thing is the challenge, while still paying homage to like the original and making it sort of like especially if you respect the song so much. Like, and to me, like I said, I really love that song and I like that band. So for us, it was like that was, I guess, a little bit more pressure than most of the covers we've done.
Yeah, so the next question is, what does it take from your perspective to be a regional artist nowadays? Because I know for sure, and I partially agree with that you resemble a lot with old Nine Inch Nails and Ministry. I mean, 3Teeth. And if I were you, I'd take it as a compliment for sure. But what do you think? What's better, to be as someone awesome, or to be completely like unique, stand out? And is it in general easy nowadays when everything awesome seems to be created already to stand out and be an original artist?
I'm not sure like what that means, to be totally honest, in terms of like being a truly original artist. Like I can't think, like we're the culmination of our influences regardless. Do you know what I mean? And whether or not, someone did a better job of like taking an apple and like a pineapple and an orange, gluing them together and being like, I made a pineapple orange thing. You're still like, okay, cool. Like you're still just like a bunch of other fruits that exist. So like, I don't think that you can ever be truly original. Like there's nothing original under the sun. Everything's been done. And I think that like with the advent of technology, it's helping a little bit. You know, you're being able to add, like, every guitar fucking riff that's ever been written has already been written. You know what I mean? It's just like tuned up, tuned down, you know, a little slower, a little faster, played backwards, played like it's all been done. Like, no one's gonna write an original guitar riff anymore. You know, they're just like, oh, what if we put like 9 strings on my guitar now? You know what I mean? Like, but I think that, you know, with technology, it's opening up new avenues for things like sound design, which can, you know, sort of like inform, I guess, new textures and new ideas that, like, oh, I've never heard a bass line that had a frequency like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't get to, you know, make sub 808 bass bombs back in the fucking 70s. You know what I mean? So I think that, like, you know, there's you know, technology is creating some new terrain, but I think ultimately, like, you know, whether or not your band is derivative of other things, and it's more noticeably derivative, as long as you're like doing what you like, then, like, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Like, for me, like, you know, the idea of even starting an industrial band was like, what if we just made music that we wanted to listen to, because like not a lot of people were making it. You know, you can only listen to so much back catalog 9-inch nails. You know what I mean? Like, at some point, 9-inch nails doesn't even sound like 9-inch nails anymore. So I don't know. Like, I think that for us, like, we've been inspired by a lot of things, and, you know, we try and give it some like new, I guess, new terrain with, like, you know, some of the sound design and textures and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's better. I think you know, it's not one's better than the other. I think it's just like, do what you want to do as an artist. And, you know, for me, creating art it's sort of like being a chef. It's like, do you want to be a guy who just like fucking, you tell me what you want on your pizza and I'll make it? Or do you want to be like the place where you go to that, you know, restaurant and the chef just serves you what he likes? You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think that ultimately I'm not, you know, I'm not in the business of being a pizza shop. I just want to fucking make the stuff that I like. And if anyone else likes it, that's cool. You know?
Yeah. So, by the way, speaking about pizza, for some reason, I wanted to ask, what do you think about pizza with pineapples? It's a totally improvisational question. Why everyone
It's funny. Like,
hates
I've sort
pineapple
of been
pizza?
I've been asked this. No, I think it's a valid question, especially me being Italian. But I don't care what you put on your pizza. If you want to put cat shit on your fucking pizza, I don't care. But in terms of whether or not I think it should be on pizza, I don't. But ultimately, by all means, do whatever you want. Go nuts. You know, in terms of it, you know, violating the traditions of what pizza should be. Yeah, it probably does. But then again, I believe in, you know, transgressive acts against all things. So, you know, transgress with that pizza by all means. So.
Yeah. Okay, so we're not talking about food. I'd like to talk about something more serious. And what do you think about AI in culture and art? As far as I remember, you are a designer, yes?
Yes, I
Yeah.
make
So,
graphic art and I do design work. And for me, it's funny because, you know, in many ways, like, I think that how I feel about it is it doesn't really even matter. It's like, it's here, it's not going anywhere. The idea of being like, I don't like it, it's like, who cares? You know what I mean? It's like, I think trying to process, you know, how to stay ahead of the curve and utilize it as a tool that can increase your productivity is sort of where my headspace is at. Do I think it will have a positive impact on art? I don't know. I'm not sure anything in today's world is having a positive impact on art, to be totally honest. But I think that the idea that, you know, do I think the machine will be able to completely replace the artist? I don't think so. I know that's, you know, sort of, you know, is it even as, like, you know, people talking about graphic work and stuff like that, like, yeah, it would require a client knowing what they wanted in order for it to be, you know, utilized. And I don't think a client will ever know what they want. So the idea, I think, people's design objects, I think people who will, you know, I guess, communicate better with the AI, learn how to play the AI like an instrument better, There will still always be a sort of meritocracy with it. You know, certain people know how to feed it better prompts and stuff like that. So I think there's always going to be space for, I guess, the practitioner to be able to sort of interface with it and you know, doing it better. I also think that, you know, it's not very clever right now. You know, if you prompt it for like doing sort of more clever and creative things, it's sort of just very like run of the mill. You know, do I think that it's fascinating what people are doing with like, you know, AI generated voices and stuff? Absolutely. Do you know what I mean? Like that stuff to me is going to have a, you know, with the deep fakes and people sort of using it to sort of like machine learn voices and then using those voices to create other songs or to create fake ads or something like that. It's like, you know, that is going to create a very precarious space in the future, I think. And at some point, I'm sure someone's going to try and regulate it, but you know, yeah, to me, it's a bit of Pandora's box, and it's already open, and it's not going to get closed. So, you know, once the genie's out of the bottle, you just sort of have to fucking learn how to deal with the genie. So, I think it's cool. I think it's exciting. You know, like for me, I think it's gonna. I like when things shake things up. You know, like I like when stuff is like rattled. So for me, it's like it's an accelerant to something else. So we'll see.
Yeah, but I, as someone who grew up on Terminator movies, first two, I'm a bit anxious right now because,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, for sure. You know, do I think it will end well? I don't. Yeah, we've all seen that. We've all seen that ending. You know, it's not going to end great.
yeah. Okay, so on a positive note, what will be your message to the fans who will surely enjoy this video interview?
I don't know. I mean, just like what's my message to them in about the album? What's my message in general in life? Like what do you mean there?
Whatever,
What do I get to do?
whatever, just you want to say to people who will watch this video.
Yeah, I think just like I don't know, just like don't forget to like live your life passionately. Like do stuff because you really want to do it. If you don't want to do something, don't just keep doing it because you're sort of in a comfortable space and you're sort of like you know, afraid to sort of like get outside of it. I think I see a lot of people living sort of like, you know, quiet lives of desperation type vibes lately. And I think that people need to not be afraid to really, you know, forget that like we don't have a lot of time. Go out there and fucking enjoy it. And you know, I think that we all have a, you know, there's a not really the best collective vision of the future, if at all, right now. And I think that that's fucking with people's spirits a lot. You know, like no one's got like, hey, in the future is going to be like this. Like, and if it is, it's like it's going to be bad to most people. So I think that like live every fucking day right now. Like it's like we got no weird future. So I don't know, kind of a simplified message, but I think it's something that we kind of all have to do now.